It began with a rescue, one lifeguard, two drowning kids, and a twist of fate that set off a chain reaction nobody saw coming. What followed was a network rejection, a near collapse, and then somehow, the biggest TV comeback of the decade. So how did something that was supposed to be canceled after one season become the most watched series on Earth? Well, this is the story of Baywatch. At its most basic level, Baywatch was about lifeguards. Men and women in red swimsuits patrolling the beaches of Southern California, diving into waves and pulling strangers back from the brink. But what seemed like a simple beachside rescue show had an unusual edge. It wasn't science fiction, it wasn't cops and robbers, and it wasn't strictly soap opera. Instead, it was built around real dangers from the ocean, the emotional struggles of the people drawn to those shores, and the kind of everyday heroism that usually stayed out of the spotlight. This wasn't just about the drama on the sand, it was also about the myth of the lifeguard, part public servant, part celebrity, part guardian angel. While it would later be remembered for its sun, skin, and slow motion, the core of Baywatch was a series about saving people, and for a time, that premise was enough. Before it was a global franchise, Baywatch was just an idea, and it came from a real lifeguard. Gregory Banan was working the beach in 1977 when he rescued two kids caught in a riptide. Those kids happened to be the children of a TV executive. That rescue opened doors. He pitched a show about lifeguards. It didn't sell, but he used the opportunity to learn the business. He kept the idea alive for years, even while working on Olympic documentaries. Then, fate stepped in again. His sister married a writer named Doug Schwartz. Schwartz and his partner Michael Burke weren't interested in the lifeguard concept at first, until he took them to the annual Lifeguard Games, where the spectacle won them over. The original pitch landed with NBC. They agreed to air a 2-hour pilot, but it wasn't exactly what he had envisioned, but it got the show on the air. And just like that, Baywatch was real. Once the pilot was in motion, the producers had to find someone who could anchor the series. For the role of Mitch Buchanan, several well-known TV stars were considered, including Tom Wopat, William Katt, and Lorenzo Lamas. But ultimately, they went with David Hasselhoff, already a household name thanks to Knight Rider. Initially, he passed. In his own words, the script felt like Knight Rider in a bathing suit. But something about the project pulled him back in, and that decision would end up redefining his career. NBC continued filling out the cast with Parker Stevenson and Erika Eleniak. But Eleniak's inclusion wasn't without controversy. After she'd already been cast, she appeared in a Playboy spread, something that didn't sit well with NBC executives. They wanted her removed from the show. The producers disagreed. They fought to keep her, and she stayed. While many up-and-comers launched their careers through Baywatch, including a young Jason Momoa, several big names just missed the cut. Neve Campbell auditioned but didn't fit the show's image, while Sandra Bullock reportedly canceled a scheduled audition altogether. Terry Hatcher was nearly cast, and Paula Abdul came close to replacing Erika Eleniak. Michael Newman, an actual lifeguard, was initially hired as a consultant, but he ended up appearing throughout most of the show's run. Another casting wrinkle came with the role of Hobie Buchanan, Mitch's son. According to co-creator Michael Burke, Leonardo DiCaprio was almost cast in the role. Everything was lined up, until David Hasselhoff objected. He felt that casting a teenager as his son would make him appear too old, which could hurt the show's image. With Hasselhoff leading the cast and the rest of the ensemble in place, Baywatch was ready to hit the air. But what happened next wasn't exactly the breakout everyone was hoping for.
California, tranquil, beautiful, and about to become a playground for disaster.
Despite its flashy setting, action-heavy rescues, and a built-in star with Hasselhoff, Baywatch did not make a splash when it first aired. The 1989 pilot, Baywatch: Panic at Malibu Pier, was a hit, but once the show transitioned to a weekly format, things quickly began to unravel. Reviews were brutal. Critics called the show shallow, formulaic, and brainless. The very network that had once pushed the creators to load it with guns and crime drama now found itself holding a show it didn't quite know how to handle. Internally, creative tension built almost immediately. Co-creator Michael Burke quit. Doug Schwartz, his writing partner, was passed over for the showrunner job. It was a rocky start behind the scenes, and the numbers weren't strong enough to justify the chaos. By the end of its first season, NBC had seen enough. The network canceled Baywatch after just 22 episodes. For most shows, that would have been the end, but Baywatch was only just getting started. Co-creators Michael Burke and Doug Schwartz had a different plan. They weren't just going to save the show, they were going to resurrect it on their own terms. The first step, buy it back. Grant Tinker's stake in the show was reacquired for just $10. Gannett, the company behind the original production deal, agreed to take only $5,000 per episode from any future series, a symbolic figure as no one believed Baywatch had a future. But one company did. Fremantle, the show's international distributor, recognized the gold mine it had, especially in Germany, where David Hasselhoff's fame bordered on rock star status. They agreed to bankroll the revived series with a massive $400,000 per episode. It was a risk, but they weren't alone for long. Hasselhoff took a major pay cut in exchange for a slice of producer profits. That bet would pay off big. He eventually earned around $100 million for his involvement in the series. With no network deal and cable uninterested, the producers pivoted to first-run syndication, something that had worked for other shows. They landed a deal with All American Television that allowed them to keep creative control unless they blew the budget. Another game-changing move came when British broadcaster ITV joined the syndication partnership. By the time Pamela Anderson joined in season 3, Baywatch had cleared syndication in 145 countries, more than any other series on the planet. And just like that, Baywatch didn't just come back, it became a phenomenon. While audiences around the world tuned in for sunlit heroics and iconic slow-motion runs, the production itself was anything but smooth. Cast changes were constant. Storylines were dropped without warning, characters vanished between episodes, and new faces arrived with no setup. It was the result of shifting contracts, shrinking budgets, and a production team that constantly prioritized visual freshness over narrative consistency. Carmen Electra, who joined during the late 90s run, later left the show, reportedly to care for her ailing mother. Yasmin Bleeth was eventually removed from the series after substance abuse issues led to repeated absences from filming. Then came the personal drama. Pamela Anderson's addition to the cast was a turning point, both on screen and off. Hasselhoff objected to her casting, citing her Playboy past and suggesting she would draw too much attention. Anderson quickly became one of the show's breakout stars. Her fame, combined with her relationship with drummer Tommy Lee, kept her in the tabloids constantly. The off-screen drama surrounding Anderson didn't just live in tabloids, it literally smashed its way onto the Baywatch set. During filming of a scene where she shared a scripted farewell kiss with David Charvet's character, Tommy Lee showed up uninvited and lost control. Security had to escort him off the lot, and he was permanently banned from returning. In a bid to capitalize on the show's popularity, the producers launched Baywatch Nights, a spin-off that started as a fairly standard detective drama but underwent a radical shift through its second season. In a desperate attempt to boost ratings, producers transformed the show into a supernatural series, filled with aliens, swamp monsters, and X-Files inspired storylines. Hasselhoff himself later said they made the change because the original concept was too dull and they all loved the X-Files. The result? A bizarre tonal shift that failed to connect with audiences. The show was canceled after its second season. By the end of the 1990s, Baywatch was starting to lose its grip, ratings were slipping, the syndicated TV market was tightening, and the once unstoppable format of lifeguards, beach rescues, and love triangles was beginning to feel worn thin. The producers needed a reset. Their first idea was Baywatch Down Under, a bold plan to move production to Avalon Beach, Australia. A two-part test episode was filmed, and negotiations were underway to reboot the series from the South Pacific. But it unraveled fast. Local residents revolted, citing environmental disruption, blocked public access, and fears of intrusive tourism. Over 1,700 citizens attended a heated public hearing, and Pittwater Council permanently banned Baywatch from filming in the area. Fortunately, Hawaii stepped in. State officials offered lucrative incentives. The show would hire a local crew, film on location for at least 2 years, and produce 44 episodes. The reboot launched as Baywatch Hawaii in 1999. But even with a new setting, the show struggled to recapture its former glory. And by the end of the Hawaii season, a pivotal moment arrived. The death of Mitch Buchanan. David Hasselhoff, who had carried the series for over a decade, had told his fellow producers he was done with the series. But the way he exited the show was anything but typical. The season 10 finale featured a dramatic sea rescue that ended in a massive boat explosion. In the original cut of the episode, Mitch survived, diving underwater before the blast and surfacing unharmed. But behind the scenes, the creators made a controversial decision. According to producer Michael Burke, they quietly re-edited the episode after Hasselhoff said he was done. Instead of showing Mitch surfacing, the final aired version showed torn shreds of Mitch's wetsuit floating in the water, implying he'd been killed. But Hasselhoff didn't know. According to Burke, it was Hasselhoff's own stunt double who broke the news. Guess what? We've been killed off. The re-edit left Hasselhoff blindsided, and the crew rattled. Ratings continued to fall, and Baywatch Hawaii never recovered. The show was canceled after season 11 in 2001. 2 years later, producers hastily assembled a reunion movie, Baywatch Hawaiian Wedding, to give the series some closure. The film retconned Mitch's death, revealing he'd survived the explosion but suffered from amnesia. But by then, the phenomenon had faded. What started as a beach rescue show survived a network cancellation, dominated international syndication, and rewrote the rules of global television had finally run its course. For a show that once dominated global syndication, Baywatch took a surprisingly long time to find stable footing in the home media market. But when it did, it spread wide, across formats, regions, and platforms. The complete series of Baywatch has been made available on DVD and Blu-ray, often in regional batches or season-specific box sets. These releases brought the sun-drenched rescues, high drama, and slow-motion runs to audiences who had either missed the original broadcasts or wanted to revisit the chaos in its full remastered form. Streaming brought new life to the brand. The series eventually became available on digital platforms like Amazon Prime, opening the door for an entirely new generation of viewers to discover the show. It's also found a permanent home on YouTube, where clips, episodes, and retrospective content continue to draw attention. Despite being a pop culture icon, Baywatch's home media presence was somewhat fragmented for years, in part due to music licensing issues. The original broadcast featured a wide variety of songs, some of which couldn't be cleared for release, leading to rescored episodes in home formats. Still, the red swimsuits, the lifeguard towers, and the iconic opening theme made the jump, even if the background music didn't always follow. And that opening theme? I'm Always Here became one of the most recognizable TV theme songs of the 1990s. Meanwhile, the end credits often featured I Believe, performed by both Laura Branigan and David Hasselhoff, a song that saw actual chart success in Germany, where Hasselhoff's pop star status rivaled his fame as Mitch Buchanan. In 2014, over a decade after early development talks began, Paramount officially moved forward with a Baywatch feature film, but only after securing Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson as the lead. David Hasselhoff made a brief cameo as a lifeguarding mentor, but while the film leaned into the franchise's legacy, it found far more success overseas than in the US, earning $58 million domestically and $120 million internationally.
Remember the days.
How did a show canceled after one season end up as the most watched series on the planet? It wasn't luck, it was syndication, scale, and a format that didn't need translation. It didn't survive failure, it turned failure into the business model. And while Baywatch was still coasting on international success, another attempt to revive a different franchise had already come and gone. One with shadow agencies, AI-powered motorcycles, and a legacy it couldn't live up to. That is the story of Team Knight Rider. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more awesome content.